when we came into this world, we didn't have none of those things. We didn't have degrees. We didn't have paychecks. We didn't have houses, businesses, but we were enough. We were all enough. We were all just good enough. We didn't have to have all of that. And the same now. Nothing has changed. We're still valuable. It's great to do, and we love that we can accomplish and contribute to society, but being is enough. Who you are is enough. Hey there, it's me, Rainie Howard, and welcome to this special episode of the Rainie Howard Show. So when I think about this topic, whether or not gender roles impact relationships, I can't help but to think about our own relationship and really talk about the impact of the gender role beliefs and society norms, quote unquote norms, and how it really impacts love and relationships. So let's talk about it. Let's just share our experience.
So what is your experience with that? How have you experienced the impact of a gender role idea?
Well, I can say I've experienced it differently in different seasons and different levels in our relationship. For one, in the very beginning of our relationship, I didn't feel like I wanted to fit the standards of the gender role, which one of the gender roles for women is to, be a stay-at-home mom, take care of the kids and the husband and do whatever your husband wants you to do. Like, I wasn't raised that way to see. I never saw a stay-at-home mom or, my mom was single. She was independent. She worked a lot, So I saw that. I saw a hardworking woman growing up. And so to not work and to be at home and to take care of kids, I loved it. I love taking care of my kids. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy that experience, but it wasn't something that came natural. I'll say that. So yeah, so that's how, I experienced it that way.
How did that feel though? The fact that it wasn't natural, how did it feel? Or was it something you realized after the fact, or how long did it take before you kind of recognized that this is not what I need to be doing?
Well, I recognized it very soon after it, probably a year or so after being in that position, being in that role. I recognized that it was an issue. It was something I didn't want to get comfortable with. I really wanted to work and do things more in my life. Now, there was a time when you and I met and, we were young and dating and stuff like that. And I was working and, doing my own thing. And then when we got married and then I got pregnant and all of that stuff it was just like, whoa, what is this? And we struggled financially in the beginning of our relationship.
Right.
And there were times, I remember I had an internship when we first got married. So I was making money and you was playing baseball in college. So you didn't have a job in the beginning. And I remember thinking, okay, you need to work. You need to do something, because I felt like, okay, we married now. And I think you got an internship offer and you turned it down because you wanted to play baseball. And I remember I got so upset with you because I felt like, okay, what are you doing? You have responsibilities.
They weren't flexible with my baseball schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
So they withdrew the opportunity.
Yeah. So, but I was like, just forget about baseball,
Yeah.
But
and I'm looking at it like this baseball is my ticket. It's the big ticket.
Yeah. And even when we got pregnant with Anaya, our second child, 18 months after the first, and you were just finishing college and all of that. And it was just like, okay, we didn't want to tell nobody I was having another baby because you was like, let's get this job first. I'm finishing up. We was moving and all that. And how did you feel with that? How did that impact you based off of the society mindsets and gender roles?
In that season, I was looking at it like I had seen so many families and people who had a whole bunch of kids, wasn't making no money, basically. And I had family relationships where people would say, don't have kids if you can't afford to pay for them. So in that season, it's like, I know I'm finishing school. I just got my accounting degree. We're going to tell folks, I'm going to tell them after I get this job so they know I can pay for it. Don't worry. I'm not going to repeat that same cycle. But the point of it was that thought in the back of my mind, what people going to think if I communicate this. You know, they going to want to know where you're working. They going to want to know how stuff is set up, you know, and already having an answer prepped for it. Like, oh, I got my job. Don't worry about it. But just the fact that you got to even prepare an answer like that or think about it in advance is just for me, it was a sign that those same ideas, those same things that people had dealt with that I knew in my family or connected around the family from the neighborhood was all impacted in my mind. Like, oh, let me make sure I get my stuff situated.
Right. But you know what? A lot of men would leave a situation like that. They'll run from a situation like that. They'll run from the fact that they're not working, and they'll sabotage their relationship because of the insecurity of that.
Yeah.
And that was something you had to go against. Did you have those feelings at some point?
I never had those feelings where I was ready to run away or sabotage my relationship, because I've always felt like when you have a certain level of responsibilities, then you have to step up to the plate. You have to do what you got to do. And I think those are ideas and thoughts that I felt like I wanted to do because it's something that I hadn't necessarily seen. I had seen the examples of men doing their own thing. You know, my mom was a single parent who basically worked nights to make sure I had everything I needed and my sisters and things like that to take care of us. But my whole thought process was, you know, I'm not trying to repeat that. So that wasn't a thought that I had, like, oh, I'm finna just go off and do, you know, whatever. You know, my thought was I'm finna do whatever it takes to make sure I work, provide, and be that leader for my household. You know, that leader that I didn't see directly. I'm gonna be that.
Exactly. But you have an understanding of how some men could be kind of insecure, or they feel bad, they feel victimized, they feel that they can't do anything about the situation.
Yeah, and that's something that I understood later on. It's not something that I considered early on in even my adult life, or even as a teenager or growing up in a single parent home. That's not something that I considered. You know, after being an adult and seeing the challenges or the burdens that one may deal with, that a man may deal with, and the choices that they have to make, I do now understand that not every choice will be the ideal choice when you're faced with so much pressure and challenge.
And I remember me being a young wife and still learning and still, you know, in the season when you was in between jobs, and, you know, and I remember being frustrated and, you know, like, oh, we need to do something. We need, you know, we need some money, you know.
Right.
And I remember having those feelings of entitlement, like you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. And I think about that now, and I think about how there are women out there who stereotype men, and they feel like if a man isn't making a certain amount of money, or he's not doing this or he's not doing that, they don't want to have anything to do with him. You know, one of the things that I've learned is the importance of support and love and unconditional love. And it took me some growth to get to a place where even if there's a layoff or a job wasn't available or you was in between something, I knew that I'm here for you. I'm here. We in this together. We're a team, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a struggle for some people to even do, or even to be willing to stick it through a season like that.
Right. It takes a certain mindset to be able to, Because I think not everybody is prepared their minds for that. Some people get into relationships based off of their internal needs, their needs to feel something, to feel some void. If you're not making a certain amount of income, you need to feel that in that spouse or that person that you get in a relationship with. You know, they not coming into it whole. They coming into it half and looking for the other half to make them whole.
Right. And it's limiting because I think about we've been married now for over 17 years. And I think about all the things that we have overcome, the challenges, the struggles, the seasons that we had. But I think about all of the great highs and the great love that we continue to evolve to. And had we not endured and overcome some of those things in the past, we wouldn't have experienced some of the great things we've experienced.
Right.
And so I think it's so unfair and not right to judge a person based off of the external and what they can do materially.
Right.
Or even to fit in a gender role that is created by society.
Right. And even just pointing out some of those gender roles. The fact that the man has to make more than the wife, or the fact that the household chores are reserved for the wife or the woman.
Yeah.
You know, kitchen duties, those are reserved for, the man has to take out the trash.
Exactly.
All of these things where they're like, this is how things ought to be. This is what I believe they should be like. And because of that, it's like, well, I don't want that, or I don't want this, or, you know.
Yeah, because I think about our relationship and how grace has gone a long way. I remember years when I first started my business and I left my full-time 9-to-5 paycheck job, and you was there to support me throughout those years. And it took some years before I started even contributing financially to our family. And it took years for me to really grow a sustainable business. And I remember we had our situations, our arguments and frustrations, but I'll never forget how we didn't allow those things to stop us from evolving and supporting each other. And through the whole entire time, you was nothing but supportive with the business for so many years. You paid all the bills, you handled all of that. And that allowed me the space to grow and to have, that peace in my process of creating.
Right.
And just the patience you gave is, remarkable. So when I think about where we are now and, you've worked so many years in corporate America and was promoted and done great things. And now we are so blessed to work together. And now we are so blessed to really experience what we've always wanted to do. And the fact that you played just as big of a role as I did in where we are today. It's not about a whole gender role or somebody bringing in a certain dollar amount, but the support and all the other things that can come and shape a relationship that's beyond just a certain amount of money is something it can't be described, sometimes physically it can only be experienced.
Right. And I think support is key. Support for each other in a loving manner, which doesn't cast any stones or judgment, which ultimately is committed to the mission and vision that you have for your family.
Exactly.
I think that's the key. If you support the vision and the mission that you have for your family, then ultimately it'll require a certain level of partnership with the person that you're with.
Yeah.
Because you can't operate in a way that you say, I want to accomplish these goals for our lives and not be committed to that partnership.
Yeah, because really, if we talk about gender roles in society, right now, it's expected for women to work as well as men.
Right.
And you could have easily held me to that role, that systematic belief. And those years when I was building a business and we didn't see any income coming in, you could have been like, look, you either get a job that could have put a lot of pressure and stress on me fulfilling the purpose on my life.
Right.
And the fact that you chose not to allow that to interfere with what we were building. And the same with me, to be able to not allow any of that to interfere with what we have going,
Right,
is what is so important.
Yeah, and
for relationships.
I think oftentimes, especially when we talk about gender roles and we talk about building, the fact that when you have to put something together like a business or your career, it takes one step at a time. And the support is required because not all of us start with an inheritance where we can start at the top.
Right.
All of us, or many of us, have to start from square one. We don't have an inheritance passed down, and we have to do the work required of us to get to the level that we see ourselves. So on the flip side of it, it's like, in some cases, it could be easier, I say, for a man to support his wife in her business endeavors while he work, but have certain standards or problems or mental anguish if he's in that same space and not able to grow his business at that same rate, or if he has to start from square one and work his way up. But that's why I said from the beginning, the support and the commitment to the mission and the vision is key, because it doesn't necessarily matter. Those roles of who has to be doing what at a particular time doesn't matter,
Right. I think really it should be focused on the individual purpose and happiness. Like, you was focused on the fact that at that season in your life, you wanted to work for corporate America. You wanted to continue to grow in your career and your position and get promoted and things like that. You had your goals.
Right.
You wasn't depleted and needing for me to do anything outside of my goals.
Right.
And so me having my goals, and my goals were not to working in a corporate job. My goals was to be creative and to write and to publish books and to build a company and inspire people. And so we both had our own goals.
Right.
And I think when we still have our own goals, we still have goals that we're reaching towards. And not looking at the other person like, okay, your goals are taking longer. What's going on?
Right.
But just being in the process of enjoying life, enjoying where you are, not needing another person to be something or fulfill something for you, but allowing them to be, and as you continue to be.
Right. And I think that's very important as well. Allowing them the freedom to be who they are, because in essence, we're not the same. You and I aren't the same. We're not going to see things the same way all the time. And our creative process isn't the same. But it's important for me to allow you the space to flow in your creative process, whatever way that is.
Right.
In the same way that you do that for myself.
Right. It reminds me, because I had a lady ask me, she was like, well, what if, you're working this job and the guy you're with, he lives with you and he's not working. He hasn't worked for months. And what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to put up with this or whatever? And one of the things I love to say is, first and foremost, if that man is going out and he's going on interviews and he's applying and he's doing the best that he can do, he's taking temp jobs and doing what he's doing, why shouldn't you support him? Now, if he's sitting at home on the couch all day and he's not looking to do anything with his life and he's playing the video games and just chillaxing and he don't have any ambition to achieve anything, then it may be a problem. But if you know he's not working, but he's applying himself,
right,
then that's the difference. He's applying himself. He's out there moving. That's a difference.
Yeah, and I think it comes with knowing the person.
Exactly.
You have to know the person and know who they are. I think that if I'm in a relationship with you and you were never that person that stayed at home playing the video game, but all of a sudden now that you're going through this rough patch, that's your go-to, then you got to understand that something is going on there. that they're not
Yeah.
being themselves. They're in a place, they may be in a slump. They may be even depressed. As much as you
Right.
may be thinking that they being entertained and having a good time, if you know that this person is not being true to themselves, then that's an indication that something else is occurring in that moment.
I agree. And I think it should be addressed.
Yeah.
I think it should be addressed. I think they should have a conversation and some type of healthy action plan. Whether that person may need some counseling, maybe they're going through some grief.
Right.
Some things happen and they just seem to struggle to get over it and to heal. Whatever it is, it should be addressed. And you don't ignore it and you don't just complain and talk bad about them. You're right. I think it should definitely be something that is discussed.
And that's an opportunity to support and encourage. Because if you know this person, you know they've had a certain level of ambition, and now that things changed, now that the pandemic hit and they got laid off, they ain't trying to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
I think with this particular situation, when the lady asked me about it, this person, she met him like that. And so that's who he has been. It's like,
well, you know what you got
right,
when you meet him in that space.
So why complain? Because sometimes people, they want to have these situations so that they can have something to feel like they're above or they complaining about. So you got to really analyze what's going on.
Yeah. And you know what? When I think about our relationship and I think about the things that we've gone through and I think about the topic we're talking about, gender norms and gender roles and how they impact relationships, I think I've had moments like that where I was in the midst of job transition or I got bad news.
Yeah.
And because of that, and I know a gender norm is that men should not express their emotions. They should be strong. They should be tough. And because of that, just like the example before, it's like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to communicate that up front. I'm not going to show that I'm vulnerable right now because I need to pick myself up by my bootstraps and figure something out. You know what I'm saying? But what I learned in the process, and I think that this is key both for men and women, is the fact that when you're in a moment of challenge, you have to give that other person an opportunity to support you. You have to give that person an opportunity to show that they're there for you.
Right.
Not just assume that they're not going to understand and not just assume that they're going to speak down on you, especially if you're in a good, committed, open relationship. You should give that person that you're with the opportunity to show that they care and show that they're willing to support you in that time of need.
I think it's very important. And like you said, something is key is just knowing this is not that person. What they're going through right now doesn't define who they are. Knowing that in the center, in the core of who they are, they're loving, they're kind, they are a wonderful person, but they may need some healing. They may be dealing with some mental illness. Who knows what it is, but not to judge them based off of the situation.
Yeah. And I talk about this in my book that'll be coming out real soon.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that your self-worth shouldn't be attached to your financial net worth. And the fact that realistically, when it comes to finances, your finances fluctuate, all the time. If you look at the stock market, you look at stock market charts, it's constantly going up. It's going down on a regular basis. But the key is to not be attached to it directly. Your emotion, as far as who you are, who you see yourself as, and the value that you feel that you contribute and impact to your family and the people around you in your world, it shouldn't be tied to those things. It shouldn't be tied to your finances. It shouldn't be tied to your income.
Exactly. Before we go any further, I have a question. Are your fears attracting toxic relationships? Your outward appearance may show confidence, but on the inside, are you insecure? Do you struggle with your desires to please people and gain their approval? Your fears may be leading you into unhealthy relationships. If you can relate to this, you may want to read my book, You Are Enough: Overcoming People Pleasing and emotionally unavailable relationships. Get this book at realloveexist.com. Life has a way of confronting you with the same things in new packages just to see if you've learned anything. Often after you end one toxic relationship, another one comes around the corner with a different name and story. You'll eventually have to deal with the roots of your heart that you're attracting these toxic relationships. Read more in my best-selling book, You Are Enough. Is it real love or your need for validation? Overcoming people-pleasing and emotionally unavailable relationships at www.realloveexist.com. I think people need to really connect more with who they are before all of this stuff, before the titles, before the accomplishments, and all those things are great and it feels good and you learn things about yourself. But I'm always reminded about how when we came into this world and how we didn't have none of those things. We didn't have degrees. We didn't have paychecks. We didn't have houses, businesses, but we were enough. We were all enough. We were all just good enough. We didn't have to have all of that. And the same now. Nothing has changed. We're still valuable. And those things are added wonderful experiences and great, but they don't make us. And we got to remember that. I think if we are reminded of how we came here and the beauty of that and just being is enough. Just being. You don't have to do, it's great to do. And we love that we can accomplish and contribute to society. But being is enough. Who you are is enough.
Yeah. And the truth is that we have everything that we need. God has birthed us and equipped us with everything we need to live a life filled with joy, happiness, and all of those things. And that we don't have to look for them in external things, but they're already in us.
Exactly. It's just a daily reminder that you are enough, that you don't have to look for the validation or fulfillment. I was thinking this too, because when we come into this world, we don't know like who we're going to be born into and what kind of family, what country. We could have been born into a whole different country, had different gender roles and beliefs and positions and all of those things. And we can't allow where we are in our country and society and mindsets and what happened in the past to dictate who we are and what we mean to the world.
Right. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yes. So I just want to encourage you guys listening to really go beyond the gender roles, to really go beyond those limitations and really accept people and love people unconditionally, regardless of what they bring to the table. I think it's a beautiful lesson to continue to learn and be reminded of, that we are enough. We don't have to fit into any kind of role, any box.
Yeah.
And explore life, enjoy life. Like I never, I didn't know specifically that one day, I would be an author and a speaker and all of those things. But I think it's great to experience it. It's great to do it. And I have even more goals and things that I would like to do and be and experience. But those don't make me. Those don't define me.
Yeah. And I think you become limitless when you don't put yourself in a box.
I always say that. I don't want to just be known as, oh, she's an author or, oh, she's an entrepreneur. No, I don't want to be known as any of those things, because then you box me up and you tell me I can't design clothes or I can't create art. I can't learn how to dance or swim or whatever. Don't box me up. Don't put me in those roles.
You can still learn how to dance.
I know how to dance. Way by. Yes. So, yeah. I just want to encourage you guys, don't be limited. None of that. And don't limit other people to that.
Right. What you see today is not always going to be present. So you can't box them in based on that one view.
Exactly. And we want to thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Rainie Howard Show. And we invite you to join us in next week's episode. Talk to you then. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of the Rainie Howard Show. Be sure to sign up to our emailing list at realloveexists.com and rainiehoward.com. We want to hear from you. Send your feedback on today's episode on Facebook and Instagram at Rainie Howard. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to download and subscribe so that you don't miss our next episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you in our next show.